Well, how do you intend to gain possession of this land that you want, and how do you intend to get there?
It's a contribution that the black man made in this country, which amounts to 310 years of slave labor, for which we have never been given a dime or a cent, places a burden upon the American white man today, for which the government should pay. Since we cannot live in peace together, mixed up on this continent, the alternative to that solution is to divide a separate part of this country into which our people can migrate, and in which the government again should supply us with the machinery and the tools necessary to establish our own independent society and our own independent country. And in this way, it will be creating a solution that the black man himself, our people, ourselves, can bring about if we have that capability. And for your clarification, because this has been brought up, some people say, well, why should the government do this? If this government can send billions of dollars to communist countries like Poland and Yugoslavia, and to neutralist countries in Asia and Africa, who have never made any contribution whatsoever to the sum net worth of this economy and country, and at the same time, this government feels that it is too much to set about something real to solve the problem for the slaves who made a greater contribution even than your people did, why the government doesn't even deserve to continue to function as a government.
What land is available that's not already possessed by others?
When you came to this country, the land was inhabited by the Indians, and you didn't have any problem then.
Free the land, battle cry in our freedom call. Political prisoners in the system, we say free them all. You hear the call, haters never wanna see you ball. But I'm a freedom fighter, I just wanna see them fall. Standing tall, cause we trapped in the system. They slapped us in prison, just a part of capitalism. I'm a revolutionary, I adapt to the system. I ain't playing with y'all haters, I come strapped when I kick them.
Black fist in the air as we walk through the door, representing Malcolm X and Assata Shakur. Queen Mother Moore, Batula, Shakur. Fight to free the land is what we doing it for. The struggle, the leader, for Huey, Mamiya, Garvey Fred Hampton, General Hamisha, Grandmaster Teacher. He's blasting y'all, you're gonna feel it. The voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
We got to have thinkers that are going to direct us in terms of how we're going to be able to achieve the goal of liberation throughout the world. We have the same problem. That is neo-colonialism. We have no control over any area in which we live. Matter of fact, we have been diminished, and all of those things have happened under the American system of capitalism. That's why we're saying we want to break away and create our own, and have our own self-government, and have our own control over our lives.
You're listening to the Voices of New Afrika, where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. Free the land.
And we are back at the Voices of New Afrika, the show where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. I am your host, Brother Prophecy, and of course, I'm with my comrade, my grandmaster teacher, my elder, one of my teachers, the one and only, the only one, for Dolly Bow. How you doing, comrade?
I'm doing as well as I can under the conditions of oppression. And we must fight this oppression to our last breath.
Let me deal with this technical difficulty.
All right.
There we go. That should be better. No doubt. And like I said, every week we come to y'all, and this is our second week back on our social media platform. We've been gone for a while, but we are back. And yeah, here to do it again, y'all. A lot of stuff going on. We got a lot of stuff to deal with. Just last week, we celebrated Juneteenth. A lot of people going to be celebrating the 4th of July. in a few days, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna be talking about that. But as always, we always like to kind of start out with what's been going on in the news and the happenings around the world, and something we call Around the World in Black Again.
Live from Ida B. Wells City, spanning from Africa, Asia, all the way to the United States of America. This is Around the World in Black Again. It's the news, y'all, what's going on? It's the news, y'all, what's going on? It's the news, y'all, what's going on? It's the news, y'all, what's going on?
Around the World in Black Again, and it's a lot been going on. It's a lot been going on, but one of the main things that's been dominating the news is like the war, the conflict. The United States of America bombed Iran, and well, let me just go to my grandmaster teacher. What's your perspective? What's been going on with this whole conflict?
Yes, the West has been trying to eliminate Iran ever since the revolution occurred in 1979 when they overthrew the Shah, who was a puppet of the United States government. And so when we look at what happened here, even after this, we see the mullah, the Ayatollah Khomeini coming out saying they have really basically achieved a victory that they did not destroy Iran when the United States unleashed the B-2 bombers and bombed several areas where there was nuclear material. And even though this was a surprise attack by the U.S. government, the Iranians had the ability to understand that attack might happen, and they basically were able to save up to 972 nuclear material, kind of like pound. I can't think of what yeah. So anyway, so basically, the people of Iran, Israel was the lead dog that was unleashed for 12 days or more on bombing all the facilities of defense in Iran, and basically Iran gave as much as it could, and we have to understand that Iran has been isolated. Its allies have been taken out by the Israel government prior to it. All of this is part of a plan to continue to do what they have been doing in the Middle East. And I just want to use one example, Muammar Gaddafi, and to show you the rules and things that they put out, that all you got to do is turn your nuclear weapons over to the West, and then we will become friendly with you. Muammar Gaddafi turned over his nuclear weapons over to the United States. As a matter of fact, I think it's in Knoxville, in what they call it, Alcoa, which is a nuclear facility in the United States that unleashed the bomb in World War II against the Japanese. And but shortly after that, they still had a plot to get rid, and they got rid of Muammar Gaddafi through taking out his airplanes, and they made assault on their whatever weapons that they had, so that he could not overthrow a rebellion that had been generated inside of Libya, just as Israel was able to go in, Mossad was able to go in and kill off 25 scientists and kill off a number of leaders, political leaders and military leaders in Iran prior to them going in to bomb the use of 200 planes. And so under the guise of making peace, they decided they were going to make war. There's Donald Trump. Donald Trump has falsely been given by the media, who are the lapdogs of imperialism, saying that he was a peacemaker. And unfortunately, the people in the Middle East basically have fallen for this thinking that Donald Trump was going to make peace with Iran. And instead of making peace, they made war. They created all kinds of destruction. But the people of Iran are more united than they thought, because they thought that they could make the regime fall, just like in Libya, when they had taken a weapon, were given a weapon by Libya, and they were able to do regime change, through their attacks on Libya. But Iran is a larger country, and when it comes down to it, we see that there's no one, what do you call that, weapon drop or anything is going to eliminate Iran, which basically has a revolutionary guard, and we're going to see Iran be able to survive this. And but we got to let the people know that the United States is the bully of the world, and Israel is this bully in the Middle East. And hopefully, at some point in time, we're going to see whatever's going to happen, and a lot of stuff is going to happen internally to these bullies, not immediately, but in understand that revolution is a prolonged struggle, protracted, prolonged struggle.
Yeah, definitely. It's a couple of things that I wanted to kind of jump on that you talked about, because you brought up Gaddafi. And I think a lot of people really don't have an understanding of, the whole phenomenon and what happened with his assassination, the United States involvement in his assassination, and really what that meant for African people really all over the world, for all of Gaddafi's faults, which, I'm not saying he's perfect and we should champion everything he did, but there's no question that he was doing some great things in the continent. He was trying to basically break the stranglehold of European and Western powers on the African continent, and he did great things for the country of Libya. And he was encouraging other African leaders to do the same thing that Ibrahim Traoré is doing now, in taking control of their own resources and using their own resources to benefit their own people. And ultimately, he was doing such a tremendous job of it that they had to take him out. And then they did that. And a lot of times, African people in America, new Africans are people who don't necessarily, people who refer to themselves as African Americans, tend to like to champion that, be like, yeah, Obama, he took out Saddam Hussein, not Saddam, he took out Osama bin Laden, and Gaddafi, and we champion that, not understanding that basically they took out someone who was actually fighting for the liberation of African people. And it's important to really understand that dynamic. So if you could, just share some insights about Gaddafi and what he, was actually about, and the significance of him and what it.
Okay, Muammar Gaddafi was trying to build up the Africa, what's that? The Africa organization. and he basically was beginning to try to have a communication system that is controlled and governed by Africans. So Africans have to go through Europe for communication in between themselves. In other words, if you are a former colony of France, and let's say Senegal, then you had to go through French communication, even though you're supposed to be an independent state. Or if you were Nigeria, that was under the British, you had to go through Great Britain or England to be able to communicate with your next door neighbor, which might be Cameroon. And so consequently, Gaddafi was going to do a continental communication system. And Gaddafi also was talking about currency. In other words, unifying the currency of Africa so that Africa have more power in its currency in the world economic system. And Gaddafi basically, was, in other words, trying to strengthen the Africans through Africans having control of transportation. That was the next step that he was going to take. Once he has done the currency thing, once he has done the communication thing, his next step was to try to deal with transportation. In Africa, transportation had to go through Europe to go to, to fly to your next door neighbor. It's not, not like the United States where you have a national or international transportation system. And so consequently, and also if Africa had consolidated its goals so that the currency will be able to be developed to the point of Africa having power in its own economic affairs and break away from the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank that was indebting individual African countries to the point of where they had to pay debts to so-called loans or to some kind of financial aid from one of the European countries and the United States. So he had to be eliminated. The people of Libya had access to the benefits from the oil that it had controlled, and Gaddafi had made it such that they could get 51% of the gold from the different companies. In other words, they were controlling the oil in Africa, and then he was able to also feed his people, send his people to universities, to gave money to families so that and the families could have homes, and so this is what the West did not want to see. They want to see a dependent African country, and he was an outspoken African leader, and who was defiant to the West. So therefore, he had to go. They had a plot throughout from the time that they had achieved independence, I think in 1971, and so and they do like they do everybody. They want to blame the troubles of the world on people who want their country to be independent, and so therefore, as long as he had that nuclear material and he was able to develop to the level where they could have a bomb, he was invulnerable to the Europeans and the United States. But he's also was afraid because he saw how they did Iraq, how they did Saddam Hussein, how they did other countries, Afghanistan, how they done. In other words, so he wanted to strike an agreement. He wanted to break away from having this hostility viewed toward him, and the countries that he had a relationship with France and Italy, and he started pouring money into the politicians in those countries on Europe, and they act like they befriended him, that they brought him into the fold. But as soon as that nuclear material and stuff got deposits in the United States, they had a plot to get rid of him so that they could maintain control of Libya in a manner that that they always do, and so they sold the vision of capitalist forces inside of Libya, and then they came in on a pretense of I think ambassador, a diplomat being killed in one of the little towns in Libya, and so therefore they moved to shut down the military capacity of Libya to take care of whatever rebellions there might be in there, and consequently he was so significant that when they killed him, they had him buried in the desert somewhere, in Libya, so that nobody could have a monument to Muammar Gaddafi, to have a memory of a leader who was for his people, and he was an example, and also he was influencing other African continents. So, this is the kind of thing that we have to begin to understand clearly. And the other thing, I think what we're talking about in terms and take it further, so therefore it's fortunate that Iran had a revolutionary guard, a group of people who were not the only significant leader, because even though they had killed significant leaders of the Revolutionary Guard, the Revolutionary Guard remained in Iran. And even though I'll tell her, and we don't, and what we're gonna do is begin to understand revolutionary countries got to begin to understand that religion cannot save us in any kind of situation we're going. It's not going to make us progress. We don't have to need the leaders such as the Ayatollah, but they created a condition, talking about the United States, where the mullahs came into power after they overthrew the Shah, and many people inside of Iran follow the leadership of the various religious, the Shiite religious hierarchy, and so this still exists. So but let me say this: we have got to unite the forces in the world, and particularly the anti-war forces, the inside of enemy countries such as the United States, such as UK, such as Israel, and such as France and Portugal, the people that are in NATO, that whole NATO force, which was designed to control the resources of the world. So anybody, any challenge to the resources of the world, even though they may not even have their military forces directly in these countries, they have created these bases which would allow them to come in and to deal with taking over and continue to control the world's resources. And
yes, sir.
Our brother is going to be back in a minute, but
No, I'm still here, comrade.
Are you here, brother?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just waiting on you to. I'm sorry.
Right.
I thought you guys had a lot to say. I just changed rooms because I didn't want our audio to be mixing in and bleeding in and causing an echo. But yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. I should have let you know earlier. Yeah, I was wondering. You was like just talking and going on, waiting for an opportunity to jump in. But you talked about a whole lot of very important things, especially when dealing with what's going on over there. And you spoke on something that's really important, and you was like saying how religion is still an issue, is still a dividing point, especially in like Middle Eastern countries, and it's a big issue over in Africa because I've been doing a lot of research on African, politics, different African countries, and religion is an issue that they have over there, especially when you have the division between like Islam and a traditional African religion. There's a lot of contradictions between those two elements, and it's been one of the barriers and challenges that our people have to get over in the efforts to unite Africa, to really achieve, Pan-Africanism, one united Africa, because that's a serious movement that's going on with like the Sahel and other revolutionary forces on the continent. But that religion thing, and it's also a division between languages, which was odd. People who speak different languages, and most of the languages that they're divided on are languages in which they inherited by the colonizer. You speak English, you speak French, and people are divided, and many of our people still have that colonial mentality that they take pride in being able to speak the colonizer's language, and I speak the colonizer's language better than the colonizers. That's something to be proud of. And when I look at our African brothers and sisters, those who still live in the continent, I'm looking at them and I'm like, y'all brothers speak like 9-10 languages. That's amazing. So there's no way that you should ever buy into this white supremacist mentality or ideology that's been forced upon the continent, even though, what I've noticed when studying the African continent, that's heavy in there. That whole black inferiority thing that we still deal with to this day in America is stronger in Africa in many ways. So, that was a very, very interesting, very important point. But, like I said, it is a very important movement going on of Pan-Africanism, really global Pan-Africanism, that's going on today, really, really spearheaded by, really got a boost by our brother Ibrahim Traoré from Burkina Faso, with the revolutionary, brave, courageous acts that he's doing and kicking the French colonizers out and taking control of the resources in his country, and actually putting a lot of other African leaders on blast on Front Street, making them look bad because it exposed the level that the African continent is being raped and pillaged and robbed and screwed over, because Africa is a rich, wealthy country, but the people are poor. The people live in poverty. And that's because of the relationship that they have with, as you said, the IMF, the World Bank, the colonizers, where they cannot take advantage of the resources that they have in their own land, which is just crazy and is really unacceptable. So I'm glad that we have some brothers, some leadership that are people who are in leadership that are standing up. And it leads me to, July 4th of July is coming up, and we'll talk about what that means in America and what that means for Africans in America. But first, I wanted to talk about, first of all, I want to say what's up to everybody out there that's viewing us. I see a lot of people coming in and out. When you come in, come out, to hit that like button, drop a comment, let us know who you are so we can properly acknowledge you, because this is a family, the Voices of New Afrika. That's all our voices. But like I said, the 4th of July is coming up. And on the African continent, really globally, they're having a international African Independence Day, or Black Independence Day. really where we are celebrating self-determination for ourselves, regardless to where you are on the globe. If you are on the continent, if you are African in the diaspora, or wherever you are, we are suffering. I mean, we are gonna be celebrating our fight for independence, our fight for self-determination. And I think that is a great thing and something that we should all jump on. What you think about that, Grandmaster Teacher?
And on the continent, we must embrace any act of unity and unison on the part of the African struggle. And so therefore, we have had some African Liberation Day in May of every year, but it has fallen off. And so therefore, this is bringing a renewal to the struggle, not only on the African continent, but wherever we are, wherever African people are, wherever Black people live in the world, we are going to become part of a vanguard of liberators that are going to begin to celebrate what we have achieved, especially from the ones that are throwing off the former oppressor, such as in Burkina Faso and other areas in the Sahel. Sahel is that area of Africa that is in between the Sahara and the Sahara Desert and the Atlantic Ocean, and in what is called the Sudan. And the Sudan goes across Africa, and North East Africa all the way across to West Africa. So when we look at this, I think it's important that we support this, that we get the information out, get the word out, so that we can begin to get people involved. And there are many people who are in the West, particularly in the United States, Africans who probably will be attending this celebration day, this Independence Day. Okay, my brother.
Okay, there we go. There we go. So yeah, definitely. This week, what's that? 4th is on a Friday, I believe. This Friday, Black Independence Day. And we're going to try to make that an annual thing. And I think it's important that anytime we have the opportunity to celebrate our liberation, especially celebrate our struggle in the plight of trying to gain self-determination, we do it, and we do it to the fullest, which, I'm going to come back to the American holiday, 4th of July, in a second. But first, for everybody out there, like I said, drop it there, hit that like button, drop us a comment, let us know who you are, where you at, so we can properly give you all. Okay, I see Carlos. For that, I can't even see my own thing. Okay, brother Carlos, how you doing? Good to see you. I didn't even see you. I'm screwing up myself. I'm not even seeing the comments. But yeah, I appreciate you checking in. You say you enjoying the show, and I'm enjoying you having you being a part of this. But anyway, just last week we celebrated Juneteenth. Juneteenth, which has become in the past few years, has become a federal holiday, something we've been celebrating for decades, for a very long time, but now it's become a federal holiday. Some people are making, the complaints that it's become commercialized and something that the capitalist system basically can capitalize on. But what's your assessment of Juneteenth? What's the importance of it? Why should we celebrate it, and how should we approach Juneteenth?
Okay, Juneteenth is a day, and we got to start getting it straight. It was a day in Texas when the federal troops reached Texas, to to take over, to let the Africans understand that the Civil War was over, and so Africans and the 13th Amendment was in process, so that the South had been defeated, and so Africans, began to celebrate this as a day of freedom in the South. And basically Africans in Louisiana and Texas basically held this celebration, and then they moved to California, and the celebration was in California, cities like Oakland, California. One time when I was a member of the African People's Socialist Party in Oakland, we took over Juneteenth, and we said, Juneteenth, not yet Uhuru, not yet free. We are not free as a people, even though this was supposed to be a day of freedom. The people of Africa and in the United States have still experiencing oppression. So we took over that Juneteenth at the Bobby Hutton Park. Bobby Hutton, who was the first Black Panther to die on April the 6th, 1968, and we dedicated that to Bobby Hutton, and we had liberation, organizations, the ANC, the African National Congress, the PAC, the Pan African Congress of South Africa, both of those, and we had other elements. We had the Chicano, Mexicano organization, Unión del Barrio, who are saying that they want to liberate the Southwest, and they call it Aztlan. Like Aztec, because the Aztecs were a major force inside of Mexico. And but many people make a mistake when they said we were celebrating our freedom, going back to Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation did not free one slave in the United States, in particular the slaves that were in the Union that continue to exist in Maryland and Delaware and other areas that close to the South. As a matter of fact, those slaves did not get their liberation until the 13th Amendment, and which still allow for slavery, 13th Amendment. So when we talk about it, it was, in other words, the word got to the Africans in Galveston, Texas, that Lee surrendered in April. So the message didn't get to the Africans that the Civil War was over. Lincoln had been assassinated. He got assassinated in April 15, and so this is the first celebration. In other words, even though the Emancipation Proclamation supposedly freed the slaves in the South, but it had to take a war to finish before Africans in the United States were able to talk about the end of slavery, and then had to take an amendment, the 13th Amendment, in 1865. I think it's in 1865, probably spring of 1865. I'm not clear, but let me say this. So when we talk about Juneteenth, we got to say to our people, we're still dealing with the oppression, the mass oppression of people in the prison, our people in prison. So that's the new slavery, and it's new and continued oppression by police force. So therefore, we can't just say, oh, we celebrate free. We are not free. And so Juneteenth, they're trying to make it. They made it a federal holiday under Biden, and then Donald Trump, is saying there are too many holidays. So look for him to try to eliminate Juneteenth and put it in the category of Martin Luther King Day and name some other days. So we have to begin to take control of any kind of celebration that will allow us to come together and to seriously talk about the issues that as they exist today. And this is what I think about Juneteenth. And Juneteenth, they're trying to take it away from the people by putting it on a so-called federal holiday so that the people won't think about what the reality of our condition is. So therefore, if we go to Juneteenth, we need to begin to set ourselves up to where we can give a message to the people at the Juneteenth, put out leaflets or put out statements and try to get on the podium so that we can talk to our people and we talk to ourselves.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. Excuse me, 1,000%. Like I said, big ups to everybody who checking in. If you haven't checked in yet, leave us a comment real quick. Let us know so we can shout you out. But yeah, I agree. Juneteenth, I think that anytime we have an opportunity to get together and spread our message and educate the people about the struggle and progress our struggle, we should, maximize that opportunity, and at the same time, we have to have the correct understanding of this holiday, Juneteenth, because what the power structure will do when they do it successfully quite a bit is they not only colonize the land, colonize the people, but they colonize the holidays. They colonize our heroes. They a lot of times when, you mentioned Dr. King Day, when they celebrate Dr. King, all you hear is, I have a dream about white boys and black boys, using the toilets together and these type of things. And they take out so many other elements of Dr. King, even though, we're not in alignment with a lot of things that he said, but he wasn't just about, what they promote all the time. Their speeches, the speeches that he got killed was very critical of capitalism. And it was very critical of basically this entire system, this war machine. He advocated for a form of reparations, even though he didn't say reparations by name. He in a speech he said, "Yo, next time we come to Washington, we're not coming to Mars. We're coming to get our check." And they would do the same thing, or doing the same thing with Juneteenth, as they advocate. Well, that's the day that y'all was free. Y'all the last, African was free in America. And we know, well, not, a lot of people don't know that it was up until the 1970s. You still had people who were enslaved in America, in these backwoods of Alabama. In fact, they did a movie about it, about individual like this. It was called Alice, and you can look up this sister's story about what happened to this sister. Basically, it was a whole community of enslaved African people who were existing up until the 70s. They had no idea that African people were free in America. They had no idea. Now, this seems shocking and outrageous, but it's absolutely true. So, we can't get it twisted about the propaganda behind the holidays, how European people have tried to rebrand it and sell it to us. We got to make sure that we have it in its proper perspective. But doing so, we have to take advantage of every opportunity that we get to maximize our message and progress our struggle. In my opinion, we should do that in everything. Even the things that were meant to put us down, even the things that was not meant for us all, we should take control of it and use it as an opportunity to educate our people. When they say Memorial Day for the veterans, for people who fought in the war, well, we've been fighting this war for over 400 years. I think we should take that day to acknowledge and celebrate and honor our fallen heroes, our fallen soldiers. Celebrate Fred Hampton Sr., celebrate Malcolm X and Demar Vesey and Nat Turner and all those brothers who have died in this war to gain liberation for our people. So I am in agreement, that we should maximize, every opportunity, take every opportunity we have to push our movement forward into that day that we ultimately gain liberation. Which leads me to what's going to happen next Friday. Now we know about the Black Independence Day, which we will all be celebrating, acknowledging, and trying to blow that up as possible. But what do you think about this whole concept of the 4th of July, American Independence Day? We read and heard the speech by Frederick Douglass, when he talked about the 4th of July and what it meant to the enslaved Africans. What's your thoughts and perspective on this American 4th of July? Because a lot of African people in America, buy into it, what's your perspective on it?
Yes. Okay. So here, I think that we, first of all, the majority of the people that I know, African people that I know, basically view it as a day of, off of work, and they basically families might come together or something like that during a summer vacation. But in the movement, what we would do will be to organize ourselves to talk about the liberation issue. Since these are days that are off work, that to come together, and also we understand that as President Douglas understood, and when he asked, "Why are you asking me to speak on this day? When my people are not even, they're still slaves in this society." And so therefore we have to do a counter thing. We have to do an educational thing that is going to talk about the so-called 4th of July Independence Day, to understand. And when we've always had misguided African, who even fought, in the so-called American Revolution, and many, but who fought on the other side too, also, where they left at the end of the so-called victory by the so-called Americans, and moved to Nova Scotia, Canada, because they were given an opportunity by the British to get their liberation, inside of Canada, right next door, and many Africans like Frederick Douglass had to flee to Canada because of the Fugitive Slave Act and things that were going on during that period of time, in which they were like capturing Africans who were supposed to be already free in the North. And so what we have to do is teach the history of that, the fact that we are not, we're not liberated, we were not even free as a people, as a mass during that period of time. And so that we have should have no loyalty or allegiance to anything, to any institution that represents the white supremacy interests of white people, not only here but in the world. So we got to bring we talk about the veterans. We're saying, we made a mistake actually by participating in these, in these wars that are put together by the American Empire. We need to take this opportunity to let our people know what the American Empire is, and what, and how it exists today to brutalize not only us, but even the native people who are still here, that are in reservations, many who are super poor, who are dying even in greater numbers than the Africans that are in America right here today. And so therefore, if we take, that's a day off, but it's a day, it should be a day that we organize ourselves for our eventual freedom from this this monolithic, oppressive force that has fooled the world into thinking that it's a democracy, but they're attacking any people who are trying to deal with their freedom. And the Cuban people are still under, assault by economic assault by the United States government, and the Nicaraguans are still under, and we can name many places in even the Western Hemisphere and Haiti, which was the first liberated African territory in the Western Hemisphere in the world that became a republic, but has been attacked ever since it got its freedom. And we should be talking about liberation for Haiti. They made Haiti pay reparations for their own freedom, and still they're not free because the United States is continuing to send their Marines in to topple any leader that will become a true leader inside of Haiti. These are the kind of things that we have to begin to organize ourselves for, and try to undermine the false stories told about American loyalty and all that. So we got to use these opportunities for our own purposes, and luckily, I think that, the majority of the people are not, celebrating the so-called, that it's just a day off. And if we can get involved where we can get, in this day off, educate our people to what the liberation movement is all about.
Yeah, you said something that I wanted to revisit when you were talking about the American Revolution and how, our people fought on both sides of this war, and many of our people went to the British side because they were basically promised their liberation, to promise their freedom. Little known fact that is actually a part of the national anthem. That fact, when African people went and fought for the other side, that was actually in the national anthem. It was referred to in the national anthem because the actual national anthem, this Star Spangled Banner, is actually 5 verses, and in the 5th verse, it has a line that says, "No hireling or slave." Something about being saved from the doom of the night or the fright of the grave. So it was basically directly speaking to those African people who decided to join the British forces and fight against them. They're basically saying that all y'all people who fought against us, y'all slaves, and he mentioned them by name, said the word slave in the national anthem. He said basically, y'all, we're gonna kill all of y'all. That's basically what they were saying in this national anthem. That's a little known fact about, when people want to stand up and be like, oh, say, and all that stuff. But being, what you said about, we should always use this opportunity to promote what we're doing, our independence movement, because see, the 4th of July, they call that Independence Day. So that ought to be a red flag for us straight up off top, because African people in America have never gained independence. We had independence before we came to America, before we got into this system of white supremacy, oppression, colonialism, now capitalism. We had freedom, we had independence before that. But once we got into this system, we had no longer had independence, and we still don't have independence to this day. Juneteenth, we did that was not independence. The best the best that you can say about the 13th Amendment was we just moved from one form of slavery to another form. We were no longer all of us together in chattel slavery, and it went to another, really a higher level of slavery, and it went through several steps of evolution, from the prison release program to the Jim Crow, and now the prison industrial complex. So African people have never gained independence in this country, and we still don't have independence. See, independence means you're not dependent on their educational system. You're not dependent on their political systems, their justice systems. All of the systems that govern our lives are controlled by the individuals who have benefited from our exploitation. So as long as that reality exists, as long as that relationship power dynamic exists, then we don't have independence. That is what we should be collectively fighting for, independence. You know, not trying to get white people to treat us right, or not trying to get white people to like us or love us or care about us. No, none of that is relevant. What you're trying to do is you're trying to be independent enough, whereas regardless to whether they like us, love us, hate us, can't stand, regardless to how they feel, it does not matter, because we have the ability to take care of ourselves. Because the reality of it, when you really break down the reality of it, this whole idea that we need them, that's in our head, because the reality is they need us. They have been thriving and built this big nation, the wealthiest and most powerful nation in the history of the world, off of the backs of African people, off the backs of our people. So the reality is this power structure needs us. We don't need them. We need us, but we have to wake up enough, and we have to educate ourselves to the ideas and concepts of independence, to the point where we realize that we have the ability to take care of ourselves. We have the know-how, we have the knowledge, but we have to work collectively. We have to put that same energy into building institutions, the same energy that we get when we're mad at Trump and we want to go out and vote and do whatever. Well, we got to get that same energy and more, and focus it on gaining institutions, focus it on gaining political power, independent political power. I'm not talking about political power when you go vote for Democrats or Republicans, whichever one you want to vote for, say not the devil. I'm talking about actual power to where we can control the laws and the institutions ourselves within our community. If the fact that right now Elon Musk has this big billion-dollar corporation down in South Memphis that is killing people. It's killing people. It ain't even been there like 2 years, and our people are already dying from what this dude is brought to our city. And we have no choice but to accept it. Nobody voted and said, well, we don't want this in our community. Nobody asked the people in their community, did they want this to come in their community? No, you just had to accept it. The fact that they were trying to run an oil pipeline through Westwood over a natural aquifer, natural water supply. And they were just gonna do this without even asking the people, and the people of that community and the people of Memphis had to raise up and protest and bitch and act a fool before, it embarrassed them to the point that we say, you know what, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. But it wasn't a political, it wasn't, no politician said, no, you're not gonna do that. You're not gonna contaminate the water supply of people who have already been contaminated and poisoned. So back to the 4th of July, Independence Day. We got to understand we never gained, we don't have independence right now. That's why we are a part of the New African Independence Movement, because we have identified that's what we need. We are struggling in America because we lack the fundamental ability to control our lives. And if you can't control your life, then you basically can't determine your future. You're at the mercy of somebody else. Just like when you're in prison. In prison, they tell you how to do everything, what to do, when to wake up, when to eat, and all that. Now we got it better than that, but still, we can't we can't say, okay, schools, this is what we're gonna teach about our children. We're gonna create this curriculum because this is the type of curriculum that will produce the type of youth that will be productive in our nation. We can't say, okay, these are the laws that should be governed within our own community. You can go to Cordova and Collierville in Germantown probably. And what you will find in those communities is they have an ordinance where you can't even have a sign that is too big. You can't have a sign that is the wrong color because they say they make the neighborhood looks ugly. You know, you can't have these big, bright red and yellow colors like, you know, we like to have in our communities. No, you can't have it there. It has to fit into a certain color palette because we don't want our neighborhood looking ugly. So they have that much power in their community. They can stop McDonald's from having the golden arch. Like, no, McDonald's, you can't have them golden arches out here. You can't have the big Burger King with the sign of that ugly dude. They said the king, the mascot. You can't have that out there. No. But in our neighborhood, they can put a factory that is killing people. They can run pipelines that will contaminate the water supply. They can dump chemicals in the water that will kill people. All of these things have happened in our community, and I'm not just talking about all nationwide. This is just right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Things that I know of personally, you know. Now, you want to really get deep into it, just look at what's going on throughout this country, you know. But I'm gonna yield on that. You got anything you want to say as far as that before we get out of here?
Yes, organization is the key to liberation. And once we understand that an African organization, no matter where we live in the world as African people, if we can only begin to combat all these injustices and stuff that we've been talking about, if we come together as a people and begin to take charge of our lives as a people. And we cannot do this in any organization that is dedicated to keeping us in a condition that we live in today. And in Memphis, Tennessee, you know, in this area, what we're talking about, you know, like it's a travesty, even though, you know, like not much power when it comes down to it. But even the one representative that represents us is a European, and so consequently, we don't even have a link to anybody that look like us that might be in a position to do our bidding or whatever, put ourselves in a position where we force them to do it. So therefore, when you talk about the pipeline, you know, this was done through organizations in the community in South Memphis, and they even got a representative, you know, that is speaking out for Justin Pearson, you know, and that's an individual person, you know, who has been protesting in the legislature and all that, and we have to corral these people to become spokesmen for us in any kind of condition, and we understand we'll never get the power. That's why we're saying free the land, so that we can build up our power and organize ourselves, and by any means necessary, take control of our lives.
No doubt, no doubt. Big ups to Justin Pearson, because he try. I ain't gonna lie, you know. I met the brother a couple of times. So yeah. But we've had another very good, inspiring show for everybody tuning in and checking in. I thank y'all. I appreciate y'all coming in. We will be back next week. Same time, around the same time. Our comrade Kakayi, which is, you know, doing some stuff out of town. He may be back, may not, but if we don't, me and Grandmaster Teacher will hold it down, definitely. So with that, you know, we're gonna be out of here, and we leave y'all always with our battle cry, and that is free the land,
free the land,
free the land. No doubt, no doubt. We got a time delay, so it's not always that smooth. We do it, but it's all good. See y'all again next week.